Hello and welcome to this short video on customer discovery. Now, the focus of this video will be to introduce some best practice ideas for when we're talking to customers about our early stage products using some processes and tools that I've found particularly helpful in my career. So firstly, what is customer discovery and why are we doing it? What we really want to do is go out into the world and really understand if our assumptions about what our customers want map to reality. This is about really delving into and understanding the realities of our customers' lives, not how we think that their lives work or what they want. This is one of the most highly leveraged things you can do as an early stage entrepreneur, and one of the most underdone things, particularly when we're very, very excited about building a solution. My advice, really, without being overly pedantic about it, was that as an early stage founder, you should be spending approximately half of your time speaking to customers. That will feel like a lot. Anything near that is good, but I think this is really something that will reduce your likelihood of failure and increase your likelihood of success. The number one reason my businesses fail is typically for building solutions that customers don't want. And so what we're trying to do is use some practical tools to maximize the learning and the process of going through this discovery period. So yeah, just going to reiterate that fact. We can always talk to customers more. It's often quite tempting to jump directly into building, and that can be really good at the right time. But if we combine that with talking to customers, the output of what we create is going to be so much more powerful. And so, if our default behavior is building, it often feels productive because we're creating something. But often the assumptions that we're building around are reasonably weak or require further testing. So customer validation really is not about proving our idea to be right, it's about understanding reality. If we go into a customer conversation looking to validate, we're going to get very, very polite answers and we're not going to learn the truth. People naturally want to be helpful, and what we really don't want is to go into a conversation where all the person does is agree that everything we're doing is right and great. We're not looking for, yep, great, that's a great idea. We're looking for real signals and that this customer has a real problem that we can solve and that they would be willing to ideally spend money to solve that problem. So we're going in ideally to figure out what is it that we want to understand about our customers' lives, and designing and questions and a process for making sense of this. There will be an enormous amount of information. So what we really want to do is start out by deciding, what are the main things we want to learn from our customers, not a vague chat which starts with, hey, I'm building this idea, what do you think? Through the process of really good questions, this can really start to change the information that we gather. We're not really looking for a conversation, we're looking to understand the key areas and the key assumptions that we have around where our customers' needs are. Or we can, and if we don't have this focus, we can create a lot of noise a lot of the time. And what we're trying to do is to make sure that when we go into these things, we're very clear about our objectives, what we're trying to learn, we're clear about the areas that we're wanting to focus on. And if we go into that with very clear focus, we should come out the other side with really helpful information. It will be a lot of information, but it's way more likely to be helpful if we can go into it with real clarity on that initial discussion. So the handout which accompanies this talk will give you some example questions to use, and more importantly, a framework to consider how to ask these questions. Typically, in terms of asking good questions, what we're really focused on is we're looking for real behavior. Questions like, what did you do the last time you tried to solve this problem? Not, would you use this product? Generally, people are quite bad at predicting future behavior. They're quite good at explaining previous information that they're recalling. So we always want to anchor our discussions in something real, and go really through the step-by-step life, if possible, if we're talking about particularly a software solution or a tool that we're building. Tell me about the last time you had this problem is very different to, if I built this thing, would you use it? Another rule when it comes to these discussions is not leading the conversation too much, particularly around introducing our idea. In terms of best practice, I would say in a good customer conversation, it's really helpful to not talk about your idea until the end, so that you've got a lot of information and context that allows you to explain it through the lens of what your customer has just told you. As soon as you introduce your idea, you're really biasing the conversation and everything is focused on that, on demoing your idea. People will typically react slightly differently rather than tell you about the reality of their world. So try to stay in their context as long as you possibly can. So after we've had a lot of these conversations, what we're going to have is an enormous amount of data, and it'll be unstructured and will be sometimes quite difficult to make sense of. So in order to make sense of that data, there's a number of ways that I've in the past done that. Now, first of all, it's a lot easier to do this now that we have tools like AI to pull key quotes out of conversations. So I would advise looking into ways that you can make this slightly easier. But one tool that I've used myself is a process of what I would call quote, insight, action, where we break down a customer discussion into these 3 points. A quote being a snippet of something that a customer said, which is what specifically did they say? The insight separating from the quote is what is my insight? What do I believe that that means? Because a lot of the time in early stage validation, we can end up mixing quote and insight. Well, the customer said that they really enjoyed this product, or the customer said that they would definitely do this thing. If we clarify the difference between a quote and an insight, it makes it much easier to look at our biases and be clear, and often share customer quotes with other members of the team who might see something slightly differently. And that's a really important part of this. We're looking for the insight. It will come from different perspectives. So take the customer quote, then what is my insight from that quote? And then action. What action am I going to take with that information? So what did the customer say? What do I think that means? And then what can I do with that information? So this is how you turn this kind of structured, these sort of unstructured customer conversations into progress. Otherwise, we'll just have enormous amounts of notes. And what tends to happen is we get a bit overwhelmed by it. We just have all this information from customers, and we're not really going into the detail of it. And I would really encourage anything that synthesizes this information. In the takeaway guide, you'll see the notes and a bit of a guide on how to structure this sort of stuff properly. But what I see happening a lot is customer conversations happening with teams just having screeds and screeds and pages of information that they never really get into and synthesize. So what we're looking for across these customer conversations is patterns. Across different conversations, we will see really interesting patterns. So we're not just talking about, one customer said this. This is across multiple conversations, ideally, in the tens, if not multiple tens to hundreds. One conversation is an anecdote. Multiple conversations will show us patterns that provide a bit of a signal. And we're really trying to build confidence about what's real and what isn't real. This sort of feeds directly into any other work we're doing around product management, value proposition, marketing, customer needs. But really, we're not looking for data that proves us right. We're looking for signals. And that's why the process of synthesis, in this case, through the idea of quote, insight, action, is really helpful. Another process that I've used would be an affinity map, where you take all of the feedback and from a lot of conversations you've had, and with your team, take a whiteboard, either physical or digital, and just everybody throwing on information that they've taken from customer conversations. So the process of affinity mapping can be really helpful because it starts to show you themes that you would not have seen had you not gone through the synthesis process. So again, there's further information in the handout about how to do an affinity map. And that can really help you as a team to go through and say, great, of the last 10 customer conversations, what have we learned? What did we see? And I found that's a really great tool to use alongside the quote, insight, action. So in terms of what to do next, what I would encourage you to do is take the handout, clarify the key areas that you want to look into and the assumptions that you'd like to get into with customers. Use the example questions and best practice to create some questions to take to customers. Then set some objectives around these discussions. How many are you going to do? By when? Prioritizing this, measuring it will make a big difference in how quickly you can move through this process. And then after you've gathered this information, going through a process of synthesis through a combination of quote, insight, action framework and also through affinity mapping. Good luck.